Welcome to the Earthworks Podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Welcome to the Earthworks Podcast. I'm Joel Simmons. Today I got a special guest, Mr. Matthew Wharton from the Carolina Golf Club down in Charlotte, North Carolina, I believe, as I remember being there a number of times. Thank you, first of all, for joining us. It's really a pleasure. And like you were just saying, everybody here at Earthworks kind of pulled your name out of the hat, mostly Mr. Hicks. And I think he does think that it's the accent, but that's all good. But that's all very good. Let me start by, I'm going to tell one story of you. And I think I've said this to you before, but I spent a number of years at Rutgers. You are the one guy in the country who I've always thought for some strange reason you were one of my students. And I know in my head that you weren't, but every time I get around, oh yeah, he was one. No, he wasn't. He didn't go. You went to Virginia Tech, and spent your education career there. But I, for some strange reason in my silly little head, always thought that you had come through the Rutgers program when I was there. And I remember telling a number of people that, and then they would correct me. No, I think he went to Virginia Tech. So if I've ever offended you on that, I stand corrected, and I apologize to you in front of the world. So I hope I haven't offended you. Tell us about you, first of all. I mean, you did go to Virginia Tech. I know you spent a lot of time with Dr. Chalmers at Virginia Tech, but you've got quite a career. And we're going to talk a lot about various aspects of your career, but tell me a little bit more about how you got into this silly business.
Okay, well, Joel, thanks for having me, and no offense taken. It must be because obviously I certainly don't sound like a typical person from Rutgers, so
that's probably good too.
Yeah, I'm originally from a small town in the very southwestern corner of Virginia called Castlewood. That's in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and I was introduced to the game of golf by my grandfather at a very young age, and there was a 9-hole private country club in the county. It was called Lake Bonaventure Country Club. I mean, at the time, I wouldn't have thought it was anything special, but it was the only golf we knew. And I got a job there when I was 19.
Caddy?
Running a weed eater.
Oh, good. Working.
String trimmer. But basically what had happened was my mother was a kindergarten teacher, but the county school system she worked for, she only got paid 10 months out of the year. So she would take on little odd jobs in the summer.
Oh, okay.
And she was working up there at the club in the kitchen. I had a driver's license. I had a car. So she would give me the call. Hey, I need you to go to the butcher shop, get 40 pounds of hamburger and bring it up here. But then when I got there, I was told to go in the back and pat it out.
Did she pay you?
No, she didn't pay me. And the club manager, he just saw this guy coming and going at random. She came home one day and she says, do you want a job? I was like, doing what? She says, I think running a weed eater at the golf course. I said, what does it pay? And she goes, minimum wage, which was like $3.35 an hour.
More than you were making hamburgers.
Exactly. And the next thing she said was, she goes, I think you can play all the free golf you want. And I said, who do I call?
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. That's how I got started. And so I started working at Lake Bonaventure Country Club in 1988. And I was going to Southwest Virginia Community College because I still had no clue what I wanted to do after high school. And my grandparents had really they were trying to steer me and my first cousin towards engineering, mainly just because they wanted a good life for us. And
yeah.
In the late 80s, early 90s, they both thought, engineering would provide a good life.
Pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did study engineering. Southwest had a program that transferred to Virginia Tech, so ended up at Virginia Tech. Completed my BS in industrial and systems engineering. Came home to tend to Mom, who was recovering from surgery. And the phone rings. It's the guy at the club. Heard you were back in town. I really could use some help. You want to come back to work? And so I went back to work at Lake Bonaventure for like another 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Gave
and
up the
then
engineering thing completely?
just, I've got the degree on the wall right here, and that's
Oh, you
about
did
all.
get you have the
I
degree in
I
engineering. I
got
didn't
the
know that.
bachelor's degree. I got the bachelor's degree, and the funny thing is, I tell people all the time, to put in layman's terms, industrial engineering is really about efficient. They're efficiency experts. So I use a lot of that on the golf course, whether it's
That's
just,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, whether it's figuring out how long it takes to do a task and how to do a task more efficiently, et cetera. So I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I had to work too hard at it. It didn't come natural, it didn't come easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't my passion. So back at the golf course, I met this woman,
Uh-oh.
and I kind of thought to myself,
Plot thickens.
this could be the one.
There you go.
And so then it became a function of, well, how are we going to make a life together, and what am I going to do? And we had a family meeting. It was me and her and my mother and my grandfather, and the decision was, let's go back to school and pursue turf.
What year is this?
This would have been the fall of '96.
Okay. So still in the peak of golf course.
So I make 2 phone calls to friends that had studied turf at Virginia Tech and said, who do I need to call? They both said Dave Chalmers.
Good call.
So I called David Chalmers, and I drove up and met him it was in November of '96. And at that point, I'm trying to determine, do I need the 2-year route, the 4-year route? And he sees I have a bachelor's degree from Virginia Tech.
Right.
With a 3.0, and he goes, have you ever thought about graduate school?
Oh, wonderful.
He needed a grad student, and the next thing I know, I was a master's enrollee starting January of '97.
So that was your turf degree.
That was my turf degree.
I never knew that either. I'm learning all sorts of interesting things about you, Matthew. So your degree, your second degree was not a 2-year turf degree like a lot of folks in this industry. So
No, my second degree is a Master of Science in Crop and Soil Environmental Sciences.
So when I tell you that I thought you were a student of mine at a 2-year program, it really was an insult, wasn't it? You have a master's degree. So you worked with him as a grad student and studied under Dr. Chalmers for those 2 years.
Actually, it took us 3. He told me it might take an extra semester or 2. Just to kind of get caught up on some of the background stuff. And the funny thing was, he went on a 6-month sabbatical
while you were there.
Colorado State. I hadn't been there 2 months.
Oh, and he's gone. He leaves you in the work.
He deserted me.
Of course. See ya. You're on your own. What was your thesis on? What did you study?
Overseeded Bermuda grass fairway performance and post-dormancy transition is influenced by overseeding rates and Trinexapac ethyl.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah, I learned that you put Primo on overseeded ryegrass, it doesn't really want to transition out.
Yeah, it just sits there and nothing happens.
No.
Nothing happens. I think I met you when you were at Augustine Golf Club. Do you think that is fair?
I think that's fair.
I think we met each other when you were down there with Rick.
I believe so. That's correct.
Because I know after that you'd been, so you went from, did you go right from school to Augustine? And were you involved in the grow-in?
No.
Augustine
was built in the mid-'90s. I think Rick was growing it in like 94, 90.
Okay, I wasn't sure of the time frame there,
Yeah, I got there. I graduated December of '99, and I was there January of 2000.
Okay, so you were really only there for a couple of years. So
I was there for 2 years and 3. Mm-hmm.
And did you work at another course between there and the Carolina Club?
Yes. So in April of 2002, I became head superintendent at Swan Point Yacht and Country Club, which at the time was in Issue, Maryland. My understanding is it's now been renamed Swan Point, Maryland. And that's on. Yes.
I'm learning all sorts of things tonight. This is great.
Yeah. A little peninsula that juts out into the Potomac River.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place. If you blindfolded somebody and took them to Swan Point, and then took the blindfold off, they would swear they were in the low country of South Carolina.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It,
I've been
it,
there once or twice, and it is a unique facility.
it's a unique, it's a
Yeah.
unique facility. The property was at the time owned by the real estate division of United States Steel
Really?
Corporation, Pennsylvania. I'm not, for all I know, they still own it. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but
I don't know if there is a United States Steel in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania anymore.
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know if they're still around. What was that facility like? What was the grass? What was the environment? I mean, you're still in, you've kind of had your entire career in this god awful environment of that Mid-Atlantic, and
Yeah, the Mid-Atlantic and the transition zone. Well,
yeah.
for the back up, I mean, Lake Bonaventure was all cool season grass. Just being up,
You were pretty high though.
Yeah, we were at about 2,000 feet.
Okay.
So we had like Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass in the fairways, bent polo greens. Augustine was pin cross tees, pin links greens, Vaymont Bermuda grass fairways, overseeded.
Yep.
And then when I went to Swan Point, they had Bermuda grass tees and fairways and bent polo greens.
Okay, so you've been dealing with bent greens for a lot.
I've been dealing with bent greens.
Yeah, in that horrible transition.
Yeah, that's what. And when I came to Carolina in 2005, it was the same thing. Bermuda grass tees and fairways and bent greens.
Are you still Bermuda grass or Bermuda grass green? You've done some work on that place. You're not dealing with any bent grass at all now.
Oh no, I still have bent greens.
Oh, you have bent greens still. Okay, I thought you had done a transition.
No, we did a major renovation in 2008, but we went back with A1, A4.
Okay.
And renovate.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. I interviewed Jerry Pepin from Vista Seeds, and we talked about these varieties of bentgrass a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting that the progression of some of these bentgrasses and the that whole Pencross series. I mean, I'm going to show my age, but I said this to Jerry, but I've always been a fan of Pencross, and there's a lot of guys up in Northern Virginia that have a lot of Pencross, including, Glenn Smickley's home course of Rubber Trent Jones. And, it's always been, an interesting grass, and it's survived well, but, this transition zone that you guys live through, I don't know why you want to do that. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
We just took the fans down and put them away for the season.
Did you? Are you cooling down that much that you can do that yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Ironically, the last 2 years, we had our last 90-degree plus day on October 5th of 2018 and October 4th of 2019.
And you think it's okay to take the fans down?
From everything I've looked at on the long range, talking and exchanging direct messages with our local meteorologist, I think we're done at looking at 90 for this year.
You've always impressed me with that. You've always been a student of meteorology. And who is this gentleman you're referring to? Because I know you've worked with him for a while.
Oh, Brad Panovich.
Yeah.
He's with the local NBC affiliate here in Charlotte. And Brad is awesome. I also do a lot of work with Herb Stevens. Are you familiar?
I guess I was thinking of Herb, to be honest with you. Yeah, but a lot of guys in the area work with Herb. How does that work? I mean, you obviously have done this for a long time, working with these kind of folks, and has it really helped you? I mean, you were able to really predict on their work.
I've been a client of Herb's now for, I guess, the better part of 6 years. I think it was 20. It must have been. I'm thinking it was late 2013, and I found him by total accident. I was running an errand in the mid-morning, which was unusual, to get a little windshield time, as we like to say.
Yeah.
I was listening to PGA Tour radio. Brian Catrick's show was on, and he was interviewing Herb, and it caught my attention, and the website was mentioned. So when I got back to my office, I went on the website and looked it up. The website was still kind of rudimentary, but there's always that contact us button.
Right, exactly.
Fired off an email to Herb, can't remember if he called me the same day or the day after. We spoke for 45 minutes. It was fascinating.
Really?
And he's like, I tell you what I'll do, Matthew. I'll add you to my client list and you'll get what I produce for the next 3 months at no charge. And then I'll contact you back. And if you think it's been helpful and you want to continue receiving it, we'll get you in the program. And if not, no harm, no foul.
So how do you use Herb? I mean, what's the day to day with him? You getting the information?
You get an email from him March through November twice a week. I get mine on Wednesdays and Sundays. And then like December, January, February, it's usually once a week. But like he's emailed me 2 days in a row, just me specifically with thoughts on.
Because the recent hurricane. Yeah.
Right.
Sally.
And this year's a little different because with COVID and everything being what it is, you know, we've only had one event so far this year, and that was 2 weekends ago. But typically you email him your event schedule, and then you'll get detailed outlooks and forecasts. He monitors for you during your aeration schedule, major tournaments, whatever. Yeah.
How far out are you getting information? I mean, if you wanted to say, I'm going to aerate in August 30th, when does he start telling you?
Like the videos is always looking 1 to 3 weeks ahead.
Really?
Yes. And so, and the funny thing is I mentioned Brad Panovich earlier. That's the local meteorologist here in Charlotte with the NBC affiliate. It was his reporting that I was always comparing to Herb's. And of all the local meteorologists at the time, his was the one that more closely aligned with what Herb was telling me. So if Herb was telling me something 10 days out, maybe I was getting it from Brad about 7 days out. You know, Herb was always 2 to 3 days ahead.
And he's been accurate? I mean, you can say that confidently?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I mean, the best part about it is it's just sort of like if you know you're going to be doing something in the next week or two, or you're planning to do something, whether it's a fertilizer application or a herbicide application or whatever the case may be, and you might already have a clue that, you know, that might not work next week. You've made
adjustments to that schedule based on some of the conversations.
In fact, we were planning on starting our spectacle applications this week, but with Sally, we pulled the plug.
Yeah. Makes sense. I would hope not. You would do that. Well, that's pretty interesting. That you'd mentioned COVID. How much has COVID affected you guys down there and at the club?
It's been bizarre from the simple standpoint that in North Carolina, golf never stopped.
Yeah. A lot of places golf. Not only did it stop, it's been exploding.
Well, exactly. So golf didn't stop ever. We unlike a lot of other states where golf was shut down.
A couple of weeks, yeah.
A couple of weeks, months, whatever the case may be. Golf always managed to stay on the list of approved outdoor activities, but you know, the clubhouse closed. Literally, like physically, the doors were locked. The restaurant closed. We closed the practice range. We took carts away from the members for over 40 days in the early stages. Now, I still don't have bunker rakes on the golf course.
That might change. I mean, we might not ever see bunker rakes again.
Yeah. You know, I actually saw on Twitter day before yesterday, somebody posted a photo about bunker rake being returned to the golf course. I looked to see where they were located. They were in Canada. I didn't respond, but all I could think of was why.
Good. That's a good question.
You know,
do you have greenside bunker rakes or no? Just all of them are gone? All of them are gone.
Yeah, we pulled them all off the golf course. We've got the little foam swimming pool noodle down around the flagstick down the bottom of the cup.
Still have that? Is that still going? Yeah.
Still have that going.
Did you ever go to individual carts? Were you ever to that?
Oh yeah, they're still single rider carts.
Single rider. So you've got 4 carts per round on your court.
Yeah, the only way you would have 2 riders per cart would be like if it's, you know, husband, wife, father, daughter, or something, you know. same household, but yeah, we're still single rider carts. In fact, because when we had the member 2 weeks ago, we had 140 players, but we only have a fleet of 72 carts.
Yeah.
So we had it was almost like a morning wave and an afternoon wave, just to allow those.
And what are you doing? You cleaning in between each round? Is that what the club's doing?
Yeah, I mean,
spraying them down.
The golf staff was having to clean and sanitize between rounds.
Yeah. So what has that doubling of the carts done to the wear and tear on the property?
I'd love to sit here and tell you that it's just absolutely horrific. The golf course does look like it's,
tired.
It had, it's had a lot of rounds, but I mean, it's Bermuda grass. It bounces back.
Yeah. Has this affected the club financially drastically? Are you guys, and I'm not trying to get into anything overly personal, but.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is obviously in the early stages, we do 6 outside outings a year. We haven't had an outing this year.
Of course not.
So obviously there's been some impacts to revenues, but rounds are up. I mean, we're smashing records. Every month is a new.
Yeah, I bet. I talk to superintendents every day, and that's everybody is saying the same thing for the most part. And I'm having a lot of conversations about wear and tear, and the courses, it's been a long, hot summer, certainly up in the Northeast here where I am. It's been an incredibly long and hot summer, and it literally went from 95 up here, and tonight it'll probably be in the low 40s, overnight, but it's tired.
The funny thing is, earlier today, my head golf professional and I, we went around together to mark hole locations for this coming weekend. We're having the senior championships, men's and women's club championships for the seniors. And we were talking about, I think we got to the 7th hole, and the 7th hole it's a par 4 where it's an elevated green. And we got up there on the sort of the back tier of the green, and I said something about, look how much better this one looks. There's hardly any ball marks. That's what looks tired.
Yeah.
There's just the ball marks and the pitch marks. Yeah. The golf course looks like there's been a lot of rounds played this season.
Do you know how many?
I don't off the top of my head.
Do you know the percentage of increase? I asked this to everybody. Sorry.
I want to say the last time I heard a number, it was probably greater than 20 or 25%.
Yeah. Tell me about the club. I mean, I've been on your club a few times, and I think it's spectacular. I think it's just a beautiful club. It's an old Donald Ross that you guys did some renovation. You've been there how long now? You've been there a while.
15 years.
Wow, we're getting old, my friend. So tell me about the club. Old Donald Ross, yeah, exactly. I had to shave mine off because I just look like an old bum. When we started in COVID, I couldn't get a haircut. I didn't shave. I looked like a homeless man on the street. So finally, when we got to get haircuts, I'm like, I'm going to start looking like a professional again. So, but there's a few video recordings of me looking much like that. But yeah, no, you look good. You look good. Tell me about the club. Tell me about the Carolina Golf Club and the history and what you've done on there. Let's chat a little bit about that.
Well, Carolina Golf Club's got a little bit of a unique history in the sense that it was originally a dairy farm owned by the Donovan family. And when Louise Donovan found herself widowed, she determined, and this still just blows my mind, but this woman in the late 1920s had the foresight to realize that the best way she could provide for her family was to turn that dairy farm site into an 18-hole golf course.
Wow.
And she's the one that hired Donald Ross. We're located just off of Wilkinson Boulevard, which is also State Route 74. And State Route 74 holds the distinction of being the first ever 4-lane highway in the state of North Carolina. And it connected the banks in Charlotte to the textile mills in Gastonia.
Ah, okay.
And Carolina Golf Club was actually the first 18-hole public golf course in the greater Charlotte metro area. So incorporated in 1929, opened in 1931. and was a public golf course. Her son-in-law, a man by the name of Sut Alexander Sr., operated it and was head golf professional. And then in 1958, by that point, Mrs. Donovan has passed. Mr. Alexander's getting up in his years, and he convinces a group of regulars, like, why don't y'all just take it over, you know? And so in 1958, it became a private club.
Oh, really?
And,
okay.
yeah. And very little was done to the golf course, with the exception of, I think the very first thing they did in the late 50s, early 60s was they planted a ton of pine trees.
Of course.
Like every other golf course.
Like every other golf course.
Just lined every fairway, you know,
Up and down, up and down.
Exactly. They built a new clubhouse on some high ground on another part of the property, and as a result, that didn't change the routing as much as it just changed the sequence with which the holes were played.
Yeah.
And when I got there in 2005, you had all these little round greens.
Yeah.
That had all these unique contours and features just out beyond what was mowed and maintained as putting surface. It was so like the bones were there. It was really easy to distinguish. And
so it looked like a Donald Ross green.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, except they were just mowing this little oval.
Right, exactly. They just kind of brought it in.
Exactly. And so the club had already partnered with Chris Spence. That was our restoration architect. And Chris is a former superintendent here. I think he's born and raised in Missouri, but he's been in North Carolina for years. In fact, I want to say he was at Forest Oaks hosting the Greater Greensboro Open like back in the 80s, you know. Yeah. But Chris struck out on his own in like the late 90s, early 2000s, doing construction and renovation and design work. And he did several other Ross designs in North Carolina. He did the Grove Park Inn up in Asheville, Mimosa Hills Country Club in Morganton. So he was kind of getting known for doing some excellent Ross restoration work, and the club hooked up with him, and they were getting ready to embark on a 4-year, 4-phase plan.
You're trying to bring it back to the original?
They want to bring it back
with having Chris?
Correct. They had two major issues at the time. One was water. We were buying water from the city for irrigation, not as a primary, but as a supplement. Yeah. There was 2 small ponds on the property, and but they were shallow. And so if you got into a 2-week hot, dry stretch and ran irrigation for 4 or 5 nights in a row, the next thing you know, you were opening up a valve, and we had a 4-inch line from the city that would help replenish the pond level. And I mean, you get a 5-figure bill pretty quick. So they wanted to figure out a way to eliminate that. And then the practice facilities, or the range, was very small and inadequate. So that was the 2 biggest things they wanted to do, was how can we get off of city water, and how can we have a larger practice facility? And there was this parcel of land that was like 43 acres right next door. And in late 2004, so this was prior to my arrival, there was a death, and somebody contacted the club and said, we're going to sell this land, would you like first dibs? And the club bought it. And that changed everything, because it allowed Chris, after walking that property, my understanding was, I think I see 2 great golf holes, and I think I can solve your water issue. And we just went from there. So in 2005,
that new property was, he moved holes onto the new site?
We built 2 holes from scratch onto the new site.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
In 2005, yes. So what now serves as holes 1 and 2 are actually 2 new holes that Chris designed and built. Yeah. And the second hole has a forced carry over our new irrigation reservoir. We built this 25-foot high dam. It was a natural ravine, and we just dammed it up, and we created a 7.5 acre irrigation reservoir that holds like 66 million gallons.
Is that adequate for your entire irrigation need?
I've come close.
Yeah, I bet some bad years.
The
Yeah.
summers of 15 and 16 were really hot and dry, and I mean, that lake level was probably down 9-10 feet.
How was it this year?
It was full just about all year.
So you were getting rain all year.
Oh, we got
And we were-
hammered in April and May. We had 15 inches in April and May of this year.
Oh boy. Okay.
You know, the summer was, June was dry through early to mid-August. We'd gone through a hot, dry spell, and then it kind of flipped, and we started getting rainfall again in late August.
Oh, so you guys were,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you guys had that decent of a rain event. We were fairly
Yeah.
dry up in the Northeast here.
Yeah,
How is your water quality? Is that water a decent irrigation water?
it's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. I've seen worse. I've seen worse with it when it comes to bicarbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the greatest.
Do you have bicarbonate issues on the green surface?
No, I'm not worried about bicarbs. I've got a high iron content. It stains just about everything it touches.
From that water?
Yes.
Really?
Mhm.
That's interesting. Is there high sodium content in it?
Not the last time I tested it.
So you're
no.
not necessarily fighting, and I don't know your agronomy all that well, but you're not fighting sodium and bicarbonate issues on the golf course excessively.
No, and the funny thing is if we go let's say we go 21 days of no rain in the summer, then yeah, I might apply gypsum and run a flush cycle
To get some of it out.
just to get some of it out.
Yeah.
But typically in a normal summer, we're getting enough rainfall just through thunderstorms that, I don't really flush very often because it just doesn't.
You're kind of south of this transition zone of the Virginias. So it gets you probably have a little bit better cycle than what some of the guys or what you used to have when you were up in Virginia and grew up. But it's, I mean, I talk to a lot of guys in Northern Virginia, and it's this big competition between which is the worst zone, St. Louis or Northern Virginia. And of course, the answer is Northern Virginia because we have more bent grass.
Right.
They're all Bermuda for the most part. So I'm going to lose some friends in the St. Louis market, but that's okay.
They're probably all playing off Zoysia fairways anyway.
Probably. You are known to be a student of architecture, and I know you're a big Donald Ross fan. So when you were going through this renovation, this must have been pretty exciting to be able to see how far. I assume Chris took old aerials or old photographs and tried to bring things close.
He did. He looked at old aerials. And it's funny because when you look at old aerials of the property, there wasn't hardly a tree on it.
Of course not. 1929.
Well, and the funny thing too, Joel, is the Great Depression hit literally right before the course opened, and so I was talking earlier about Sud Alexander Sr. That was her son-in-law. Well, his son, Sud Alexander Jr., is still alive today. He's still a member at the club.
Really?
Oh yeah. And so, don't get me wrong, he's up there, but
I would think so. Yes.
He's still alive today. He emailed me.
Does he still play golf?
I couldn't tell you the last time I
Probably
saw him.
not. But he's there.
But every time I update my blog, I get an email from him. So he updated the blog this morning, and I got an email from him earlier this morning. Sut will always remind me that, they kind of allowed some of the bunkers to just grow over as a result of the Depression.
Of course, a lot of changes because of that.
Right. But they were there.
Yeah.
The landforms were there. You could clearly see that this was a bunker, even though it was just all grass. By the shape of the landform. But it was fascinating. One of the things I remember Chris telling us, and I want to say it was about 06. Building those two holes in 05 was fascinating. And it was a unique challenge because we were still maintaining 18 holes of golf for play while building two holes and growing them in.
Right.
And then the next year, we opened those 2 holes for play, and we took the 2 parallel par 4s right out back of the clubhouse, and we bulldozed those, and that's where we built the range and the practice facility.
Oh, okay, I was going to ask you where that land came
But
from.
so we, before we kind of got into phase 4, which was the remaining 16 holes of the golf course, I remember Chris was like, I really want you guys to go up to Mimosa Hills. And he says, trust me, when you get down to the first green, you'll know why I'm sending you there. And so it was me, the GM, club president, or maybe it was the Greens chairman. Anyway, there was 4 of us, took a little day trip to Morganton. And you get down the first hole and the 4th hole are parallel to each other, and the 2 greens get kind of close. And you get down there and you take one look and you're like, oh, that's what we're going to look like.
That's
because
familiar.
It's the same architectural features, the same features in the ground, but it's like, instead of this little oval, the green's now been pulled back out to expose those corners.
Yeah.
They
the
were there.
original greens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you were finally able to visualize what we're going to be going through in 07 and 08.
Yeah.
And so we closed November the 1st of 07, and we opened back up October 1st of 08.
So everybody seems to think in their head, at least I do, Donald Ross greens are notoriously these little, silver dollars, these little round things. But that's really not true, is it? I mean, the original Donald Ross properties, and there's so many of them now, and they're wonderful, that have gone back to some of the original designs. I think of, I work with Eric Richardson up at Essex, which is a beautiful old Donald Ross property. In fact, his house is on that property up in Massachusetts. But they had come down to a point of little tiny greens, but they've done some magical work of revising that whole property into to the original design. And there's, I mean, how many Donald Ross courses are there? Like 5 million. I mean, if you look at the list, it goes on forever. And there's so many that, people say that, oh yeah, there's a 9-hole course down the road from me. That's, a $20 a round 9-hole. And they claim to have had Donald Ross as an architect. He was at a local pub, having a beer with a friend, and grabbed a napkin and started scratching out some holes. Here, go design this. And they call it Donald Ross. I mean, they're everywhere and they're wonderful.
Yeah. I think the number now that is closer to 400. At one time it was as high as 600, but I think the number's closer to 400.
So 200 of those guys claiming to be Donald Rosses have been kicked out of the club. Is that the plan?
Well, either that or they just no longer exist. I mean, that's one of
that's unfortunate.
That's one of the saddest things about it. But yeah, I mean, typically what Ross was doing, and the other guys as well, those architects in that era, was everything was being formed. Let's take the soil and let's kind of gather it up, kind of create what they call a fill pad, and then shape the green into that, and then the bunkers get kind of tucked into the sides of the fill pad. But they had unique corners. Most of that rounding, the silver dollar that you refer to, that all kind of happened in the late 50s and early 60s with the advent of the triplex greens mower.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that mower couldn't quite get into those sharp.
Couldn't make those corners. It was too tight.
Kind of got it off, and then over time it just
Yeah, and we got to remember too that most of these courses that he did originally in the 20s and 30s, we didn't have bulldozers the size, the equipment that we have now. We had horses, or a couple guys with some shovels. Could have been
horses, mules, drag vans. Oh yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So are you guys now back to what was the original design? Are you close? I mean, are you feeling comfortable with that?
Well, the thing is, you could. I don't know that you could ever. I mean, we lengthened the golf course to accommodate. I mean, when I got there, the golf course was less than 6,300 yards long, and we're now 7,068.
Oh wow, perfect.
And that's short by modern day professional standards.
How many trees have you taken down?
Oh, we stopped counting after several hundred.
Are there more to come? Could there? Or let me rephrase that. Could there be more to come?
We're always looking closely at trees, whether that's the removal installation.
Yeah.
You know.
Are you under restriction in the county or the area where you are to have to replace trees that you remove? A lot of courses have that restriction.
No, we're fortunately in that doesn't apply to us, thank goodness.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that's a challenge. I mean, like I was saying with Eric Richardson, I mean, you wouldn't even recognize the course with the amount of trees that he's taken, and it's spectacular. I mean, it's truly spectacular what he's done on the removal. But, so many guys that I talk to all across the country. I mean, look at Wingfoot that we're watching this week. I mean, they took a ton of trees down on that property and completely changed that beautiful design. Well, didn't change, they improved it, but they took a lot of trees down, and it's spectacular. I don't know if you've had a chance. Well, you certainly know the property, but a lot of folks will be seeing it for maybe the first time this week. But it's a wonderful old Tillinghast property. I mean, it's
I had the good fortune to attend the U.S. Open in 2016 at Oakmont, and that was
there's another good example of a lot of trees down.
That was mind blowing. I mean, I remember watching the 07 Open, where by that point they were well into the tree removal program, but then to actually set foot on the grounds in 2016, and it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's one of those properties. If you were blindfolded and dropped in the middle of that after the removal, and they asked you where you were and you knew the property, you might not know that property. Because the removal was, so spectacular. I mean, I've had many conversations with guys, if a tree, if you need to prune it, just cut it down, just get rid of it. Of course we're biased, but let's talk a little bit about one of these subjects that Mr. Hicks brought up, which I didn't realize. Well, first of all, before I do that, you are in fact a master greenskeeper. What does that mean? I mean, not everybody knows what that means. Explain it to us.
Well, I mean, I think everybody here in the U.S. is familiar with the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, GCSAA.
Of which you're certified.
Right, of which I'm a certified golf course superintendent. But our counterparts across the pond, if you will, the British and International Golf Greenkeepers Association, or BIGA for short. I mean, BIGA is essentially the UK version of GCSAA, if you will. And the Master Greenkeeper certificate would be, their certification program. And I remember first, this is going to blow your mind. So do you remember the name Walter Montross?
I know Walter very well. Yeah, I knew Walter very well.
Right, exactly. We lost Walter
unfortunately.
Just last year.
Yeah.
Well, Walter was the first person I ever met that was a master greenkeeper.
I think that's true of me as well.
And I met him I went with Dave Chalmers on one of his extension visits and met Walter, and it was one of those things that I just stuck that back there because that was different and unique. It wasn't really I wasn't all that sure what it was. I just knew it was different. And Doc used to have the publication from BIGA on. He had a magazine rack right outside his office door. So he'd have like golf course management and other publications there for any of his students to take. So I had seen the publication, so I knew how to put the two together. And then I think it was 2010. I was at the GIS on the trade show floor and happened to stumble upon a booth. It's BIGA.
It's BIGA, yeah, they're there.
And so, started a conversation with Sammy Strutt. And the next thing I know, I'm joining as an international.
Pulled in.
Yeah, I'm pulled in. But for me, it really has more to do with just, I'm a history nerd.
Yeah.
And the fact that the origins of this game that I love more than anything comes from, comes from Scotland and comes from the United Kingdom. I wanted to somehow be tied to that. And so I joined as an international member and was able to enter into the certificate program and go through the process. And it's a lot of similarities to ours, but there's one big difference. And the difference is their exam is way harder.
So you didn't have to go over to England to be participating in this? You could do this remotely?
No, you can do this. You can do this from right here. I went over to accept my award, but no, it's 3 stages, and stage 1 is essentially an accumulation of work experience in professional education. And so actually what I did, Joel, was I took my college transcript from Virginia Tech and my lifetime transcript from GCSAA, and I sent that over along with the application form, which had all my work history information, kind of just sort of waiting to see what they were going to say, because I figured at the very least, if I found out, oh, well, you're X number of credits shy,
yeah,
it would at least give me a roadmap of what I need to take and when going forward. Fortunately for me, when I found out was I already had enough points accumulated. So it's like, okay, well, now you're on to stage 2. Stage 2 is very similar to the CGCS in the sense that it's basically an inspection of your entire facility, your golf course, and your maintenance facility, the way you run your operation and the way you present the golf course. And it's carried out by 2 inspectors. So they assign an MG. For me, it was Terry Buchan.
Okay.
And right. And then, within the CGCS program of GCSAA will reach out to 2 certified superintendents to come do your inspection. Being as remote as we are here in the U.S., and there not being as many MGs in the U.S., BIGA will assign 1 MG, and then they'll tell you to find a CGCS to accompany them.
Oh, okay. So there's always 2 people. It's just not always
right. It's always 2 people. So I reached out to Brandon Goodrich over at Carmel Country Club.
Good.
Because I thought he was somebody that would really enjoy that experience. He would benefit from it as well. And I'll never forget, they showed up the morning and Terry's like, "You got a couple of carts for us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, well, we're going to go out, inspect your course. We'll be back when we're done."
Oh, great. Without you?
And I was like, "Hey, wait." Yeah, that was not what I was expecting.
That's too funny. Has this helped your career? Would you recommend it to other superintendents?
I would recommend it to anybody that wants to challenge themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? You learned.
But as I've talked to numerous guys here in the U.S. that, I get 1 or 2 guys, maybe 3 guys a year that'll reach out to me and pick my brain and want to know what it's about. And I tell them all the same thing. I was like, I didn't do it for my career. I didn't do it to get a better job. I just did it for me.
Yeah.
In fact, if we were at my office at work, you wouldn't see the certificate on display. Because
really? Yeah, I never knew that you were a master greenskeeper.
Yeah, I keep
all
it
the
here.
years I've known you. Did not know that.
I keep it here at the house.
Yeah. There you go.
I did it for me.
Perfect. You should hang it at the office. Go ahead. People like me could see it. So let me kind of finish up by you're one of these guys that everybody knows, but nobody has met. And I remember Kevin Hicks telling me the same thing. And you guys are both award winners of the GCI, I guess 2015 Social Media Award. Do I have that right?
That's correct. Yeah,
I think so. So you've been and so that goes back a ways. I mean, that 2015 was, before this explosion of social media really has taken on, and we do all these podcasts and the Twitters and all that kind of stuff. So you've been very active in communicating through social media for a long time, obviously longer than 2015. And I know Kevin says this to me all the time. He goes, "Yeah, I know a lot of people that I've never met because they all come up to me." And I'm sure you run into the same thing because you are so active on social media. You meet somebody at a show or somewhere and you're like, "Oh man, I've always wanted to meet you. I've been following you or doing this for so long." How did you get into this? And what was the interest in that? And why do you do it?
Well, I mean, I think with like most superintendents, especially in the private club sector, back in the day, everyone had to write for the club newsletter.
Yeah.
And I had to do the same thing. And then the club newsletter became at least the printed version became a thing of the past.
Yep.
And
when did it happen for you? When did you go digital at the club?
I want to say about 2009.
Okay.
And the software platform that we were using, the general manager said, okay, well, there'll be no more printed version, but you can just email the membership directly. And I don't even remember what we were using as a software platform, but it was not user friendly. It was hard to add photos. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my office on a rainy day in November of 2011 and logged on to Blogger and just created my own blog page. And I was like, I like this better. And the club supported it. The only thing that I have kind of continued to do is I still send out an email that basically says, hey, the blog's been updated.
Here it is.
But here it is. The link is there.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that now for 9 years. 2013, I had a couple of friends that were on Twitter. I overheard them talking about Twitter, but I didn't know what it was.
What is this thing, Twitter?
Yeah, what is this thing? And I was talking to the Greens Committee chairman at the time. The first 2.5, 3 years of blogging, it seems like you got a lot to say. And then after you say so much, you start to realize that maybe the time between posts is starting to kind of get low. I thought Twitter might be an opportunity to sort of bridge the gaps between blog posts. And I remember it was trending younger.
Yeah.
At that time, we were having a lot of turnover. I want to say by 2013 or 2014, probably greater than 50% of our membership had joined post 2008.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
so you were getting younger.
We had a lot of turnover and get a lot younger. And so he's like, I've got an account, I use it, but he said he used it strictly for, that's where he got his sports information and stuff.
Right.
He wasn't putting stuff out there. But so I joined it in late November of 13, and looking back on what I used to post then, probably kind of silly and inconsequential, but for me, the funny thing was this just totally unexpected, and the side benefit was I had no clue there was this turf community on there sharing information with each other.
Yeah.
And my wife will be the first to tell you that, I'll talk turf all hours of the night to anybody. So
it's good.
So I can sit at my desk and chat with somebody in the UK, or sit on the sofa and chat with somebody in Australia. I'm all in. That sounds like fun.
I know. Talk turf all night long.
Exactly. And so, but the one thing that I think that I've always tried to, over the course of the last 7 years, I think I've allowed more of my personality to show through, and a little bit more of behind the scenes of my personal life. But at its core, I use that platform to talk to the members. I'm trying to give them information that will help them better understand what's going on their golf course, even if I'm talking about the weather all the time.
Yeah.
And so if you or somebody else in the industry, if there's something that I put on there and that helps you or you benefit from it in some way, that's great. That's gravy as I look at it. But I'm not talking to you, Joel. I'm talking to my members.
I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I always thought you were talking to me. You feel like that.
Well, but I say that though because I think there are a lot of superintendents that use it to talk to the turf community.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
I think there's more guys that they use the platform solely just to have the exchange and the banter.
Banter, exactly. Yeah.
And so sometimes you put something out and somebody might look at it like, well, why are you bragging about this? And it's like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this group of people over here.
Yeah, I'm talking to my members.
Exactly.
Well, you must have found a lot of friends from that, and I'm sure you run into a lot of them when you go out to the trade shows and such.
Well, I'll share one with you. So my wife, uh, AKA Mrs. Greenkeeper, I've always referred to her as Mrs. Greenkeeper, just to give her some semblance of privacy on social media. And she'd kill me if she heard me tell this story. But
we won't let her listen.
you know, she was with me at GIS. It's been several years ago, and a young man came up. He wanted to say hello and introduce himself because I follow you on Twitter.
Followed you, yeah.
And he looked at my wife and he goes, "And you're Mrs. Greenkeeper."
She didn't know that she was Mrs. Greenkeeper at the time. Yeah. Did you go home alone that night?
No,
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's a great story. That's a great story. I'm going to ask you one last question. Right behind you are a bunch of golf. Are they old hickory sticks from Grandpa, or what's sitting in that bag behind you?
Okay, so no, believe it or not, these are not hickories, but these are 1930s era Walter Hagens.
Oh, really?
They are, but they're still shafted, but they're colored.
Okay.
They look like hickory.
It looks like hickory from a distance. I thought it was a historical bag.
And
Yeah.
you can see.
Look at that.
Got
the H. Yeah.
But so these were called Honey Boys. They're circa 1930s. These belong to Dr. Dave Chalmers' dad.
Really? That's
Yeah.
very good. Have you ever played them?
I have not. So he reaches out to me out of the blue. I guess it's been a couple years ago now, and tells me he and his wife Elena, they're up there in South Dakota. Doc's retired now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like, he goes, "I think you'd give these a good home."
Oh, that's
And
quite an honor.
And I was, but so when they arrived and I took them out of the box, I was just flabbergasted at the condition.
I was gonna say they're in great shape.
Well, and he told me that the story was that they technically belonged to his father's boss, and it was like one of those things where it's like, you're playing in the company outing today.
Right.
Here's
some sticks.
Here's some sticks. That's how his father ended up in possession with him, and he didn't play that often.
Yeah.
And so I'm afraid to hit them, Joel.
I don't blame you. I would be. They look so good in your office. This is a great shot. You should do more shots from here. But that's too funny. That's a great story. It's wonderful that you got him from the Doc. So it really brings a lot to the table. Well, I need to thank you so much. We've run out of time, unfortunately, but Matthew, I can't thank you enough for joining me today and all your support over the years. And I wish you the best of luck through this COVID thing, and hopefully the removal of the fans isn't going to affect you in any way, and that your weather guy is giving you all the right information, and you get a big hot spell down there in the next couple of weeks, and things come back to normal, and we can actually get back together and run into each other again one of these days. But
I remember fondly the last time you were in the office, and I look forward to your next visit.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and thank you for everybody joining us on the Earthworks podcast.
This has been fun. Thanks, Joel.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matthew.